Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it a few moments for people to join, and then we will get started momentarily. Hello, and thank you all for joining us today for this fireside chat, how RAIN RFID is transforming tariff turbulence into transparency. Just a few logistics before we begin. We anticipate the presentation will last approximately 45 minutes, allowing us 15 minutes for questions. Please kindly submit using the Q&A on the control panel on your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Additionally, the call is being recorded and it will be made available to the public following the close of the presentation. On behalf of the RAIN Alliance, I am pleased to introduce to you Aileen Ryan, CEO of the RAIN Alliance, Mason Hillman, Senior Manager of Government Affairs for North America at Avery Dennison, Tom Buiger, RFID Business Expert at Nedap, and lastly, our moderator, JP Camel, Managing Director at RFID Sherpas. I'll turn the webinar over to you now, JP.
Well, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, whether it be morning or afternoon or some other time if you're watching this on repeat. So as we kind of delve into this, so today we'll be talking about, in a world where trade and trade rules keep shifting, visibility is really no longer a luxury. It's really absolutely key to survival. And so we'll be exploring how RAIN RFID empowers businesses to navigate these global complexities with visibility. But before we dive into the serious stuff, we thought we'd have a little bit of fun. So I'll open it up to the panel. Can anyone tell us, has tariffs crossed your mind as you've been making any purchases, or have they affected your purchasing in the last little while?
So maybe I'll jump in on that one, JP. It's a great question. And so last week, I'm originally Irish, as many people know, or you'll have deduced from my accent. But last week, I visited my parents who still live in Ireland. And Ireland is part of the European Union. I live in the UK, which since Brexit is not part of the EU. And what that means is that travel between the two countries allows us to purchase duty-free items. And our family tradition is to always bring a bottle of gin as a gift. No matter which direction you're going, there's always a bottle of duty-free gin that gets purchased along the way. So the last thing I bought was a bottle of duty-free gin as a present for my dad. Now, this, as I said, this is something new since Brexit in the last few years. So when the UK was part of the European Union, this was not something that we could avail of or benefit from. So the tariff or tax situation between the UK and Ireland has changed as a result of the jurisdictional change. And it definitely does cross my mind every time I make that journey, and I make it a lot, kind of how lucky we are that now we're able to get duty-free gin.
A similar story, actually, Aileen, that's related to travel. I've been in the US just last week, and I had some time still at the airport when I went back, and I bought a T-shirt as a souvenir. And actually, when I checked the care label, it said it's made in Asia, and then I thought, oh wow, this item, this product already traveled further than I did, and now it's with me. So it was produced in Asia, sold in the US. I brought it back to Germany, actually, where I live. So that product already passed quite a few borders, went also through different tariff zones. So while it's relatively easy and simple on the first glance that I just buy an item everywhere in the world, quite a lot of happening in the background. And so I had a similar aha moment during my travels as well.
And I'd say my example has to do not with any recent purchase, but with future purchases. I recently read about Procter & Gamble raising prices on a lot of their products. And as I read down the list, I was like, well, I use that, I use that, I use that. So I, without knowing it, have become a Procter & Gamble person, apparently, and I read through a lot of the different products from toothpaste to laundry detergent that are going to go up in prices as a result of the tariffs in the US. So it's a future concern, but definitely one that will affect me personally.
As much as I love toothpaste and t-shirts, I think I'm going to be hanging out with Aileen with her gin. But yeah, I personally, I'll throw one story for you guys. I'm a comic book collector actually, and so yes, I am a nerd and I love it. But I just ordered a comic book and it came across the border, and I got a little bit of a surprise. I got a $70 tariff bill, duty and tariff bill, along with my comic book, which I was not expecting. So, welcome to the new world. So it really is interesting how everyday products, really at their core are at the core of this global story. And so let's try to unpack this and see how RAIN RFID technology can really help brands gain control of their supply chains and gain insights into what's happening. And so, if I kind of take a step back, 2025 started off with yet another round of surprise tariffs. Obviously a lot of those started in the US and really pushed right across the board. And so for many brands, this meant, sourcing chaos. Many of them had already shifted product production, and now logistical nightmares and headaches as to how they were going to source their product and how they were going to get them. And so maybe I'd throw back at the team here to see, what are you seeing in your world in terms of how has this affected brands and how has it affected your customers?
Well, if I jump in first again on that, if the guys don't mind, all our roles are very different, and I think we're going to see some really different answers here. But my role as CEO of the RAIN Alliance is really focused on RAIN Alliance members. That's my little world, really. And RAIN Alliance members, like many other technology players, are all watching the, I would say, as yet unsettled tariff situation. They're trying to predict where this is going to end up. We see member companies working to overcome global unpredictability by, for example, building manufacturing plants in various locations or building partnership for manufacturing or assembly in different locations, whether that's Vietnam, India, Malaysia, the USA, Latin America. I see lots of different locations coming into play. And effectively what people are doing is they're placing bets and trying to make sure that they have a viable plan A, B, and C in place so that regardless of the unpredictable changes, that they have a good and hopefully a winning option to use. We also see members doubling down on standards and in particular data standards to enable visibility in trade shifts. So making sure that item identifications are unique regardless of which data carrier is in use. So whether that's RAIN RFID, whether that's a QR code or something else, it's, we're really seeing a lot of attention being paid to making sure the encoding and the identification is done correctly. And again, that's all in response to an effort to minimize headaches as those tariff landscapes change around us.
Yeah,
JP,
from
you
my
said
vantage point, go ahead, Dom.
just wanted to refer to one aspect that JP mentioned in his question, and that was surprise tariffs. Because basically tariffs are not new. So tariffs are part of normal business and global trading. But the question is how to handle this situation and to avoid those surprises. So tariffs are there. Tariffs are part of the game. So what I see in current conversations with specifically companies that represent brands and retailers is that they try to regain control for the rest of the business. So how can they overcome the uncertainty? Because that's the main problem actually. So uncertainty, and in order to get control back into this uncertainty, they are investigating a lot to create visibility, actually knowing where an item is coming from. And sometimes it's also a question of the journey of an item, the provenance of an item, where it is now, to be better able to control where it needs to go. And of course, RAIN RFID as a technology can help a lot to get this visibility into real-time data and thus build resilience. I think that's a very important aspect. And sorry, Mason, for jumping in. So over to you now.
Not at all. I'm glad you did, because it gives me a lot to build off of. From my vantage point, handling government affairs at Avery Dennison, we kind of see this from a unique vantage point, because not only are we a business operating in an unpredictable tariff environment, but we also make RAIN RFID products. And so we're seeing how this is affecting our customers while also living through this in real time as to how this affects us. And it's really brought to the fore how important it is to have accurate and verifiable origin documentation that also can provide you with precise real-time data on where something has come from, provide that, as Aileen was talking about, immutable proof of origin. You can really rely on what the data that the RFID tag is holding says, and that's going to be ever more important as the tariff situation evolves and companies are trying to figure out where do we go, where do we make things, and how do we navigate the shifting landscape of tariffs, and especially coming out of the U.S., but throughout the world globally as well.
That's perfect. Thank you. And we talk about shifting landscapes and uncertainty. It's really all about turbulence. And so can we talk maybe, let's connect turbulence to tech. And so why is RAIN RFID suddenly back in the boardroom conversations?
In my view, this is related to the evolution of RAIN deployments. And that, of course, has taken a different trajectory in different industry sectors. So when we think about retail, the initial deployments were around inventory counting and maximizing revenue generation opportunities, effectively looking at the top line. But in other industries, they may have started with, for example, looking at operating efficiencies, driving the bottom line. And now in all industries, we're seeing both of those use cases coming into play very strongly. And more than that, we're also seeing your RAIN infrastructure as an enabler of compliance, whether that's tariff compliance or compliance with other laws like the Digital Product Passport or Food Safety Modernization Act. Clearly, all of these types of questions are of interest in the boardroom. And I think it's because of that proliferation of use cases and proliferation of applications, maximizing the top line, looking after the bottom line, making sure you're compliant with all of the relevant legislations, and you're able to audit against your compliance against those legislations. In my view, that's why RAIN is a key element of those really senior level conversations now.
Yeah, picking up on the compliance piece of this, at Avery Dennison, we're seeing how the advancements in smart tagging and RFID really help companies address those compliance challenges. And especially kind of bringing it back to tariffs a little bit, as we're seeing regionalization of supply chains, as opposed to maybe more globalized supply chains in response to the tariffs, this technology works just as well in a regionalized environment as a globalized one, because the systems backing up RAIN RFID are standardized, much like barcodes. And so that allows companies to be able to know that if they put a RAIN RFID tag on their product, it's going to be able to be read wherever it ends up. And so that standardization is also very critical as well. And being able to trust what information that tag carries is a huge piece of that.
You were asking, JP, why is RFID, RAIN RFID back in the boardroom? Because it's not a new topic, obviously. And I observe also that it's to a certain degree back to basic. So relating that to tech, the strengths and the technical capabilities of the technology are bulk reading over the air in a distance through closed boxes, relatively basics, and not as spectacular as buzzwords like AI. However, based on the tariffs, many brands, retailers, other companies currently are faced with a potential challenge that they would need to increase prices. So it's getting more expensive, obviously, but they want to avoid that. Still, they need to protect their margin and hold the margins. So actually, there's also a push currently. That's what I mean with back to basics, for the efficiency gains, for everything around operational efficiency, getting maybe more automated in order to see or leverage that room between stable prices, but increased cost to protect the margins. So it's about enabling leaner and more profitable operations as well.
Thank you. Those are great answers. Historically, just kind of keying off of something you just talked about, historically, inventory management and inventory visibility and tariff compliance have lived in completely separate silos. And so how is RAIN RFID helping to unify those domains? And how is it really coming together? And what kind of integration of data is required? And what kind of champions do we need within organizations to drive this?
Well, speaking from a government affairs perspective, within the organization at Avery Dennison, we have really seen a lot of our trade compliance folks, government affairs, and the business come together for kind of collaboration around what's happening in the tariff landscape. From a government affairs perspective, I'm monitoring, informing the business and the trade compliance folks who then can tell the business what are the implications of this on our products and our supply chains. So within a global company such as Avery Dennison, we're seeing it kind of naturally bringing a lot of folks together and increasing collaboration across those functions.
That's really good to hear, Mason. So if I were to put RAIN RFID into context, the industry saw almost 53 billion with a B RAIN tag chips shipped in 2024. That's 1 billion a week. So it's one of the most widely, if not the most widely adopted RFID or even IoT technologies. And the market continues to grow at over 20% compound annual growth. And the drivers of the growth are, first of all, continued penetration in retail, also broader mandates in retail. So tagging of more products, different types of products, be they electronic goods or sporting goods or beauty products, for example. But crucially, we're also seeing deployments in other markets now growing at a really significant pace. So the logistics market following hot on the heels of retail in volumes, healthcare, transportation, etc., right? A long tail of other different industries that are adopting RAIN RFID. And what we see is that in different industries, there can be different primary champions. So in retail, it would maybe traditionally have been the person responsible for driving a sales quota, whereas in other markets, the primary champion might be somebody in an operations role, maybe looking at efficiencies or operational efficiencies or compliance. But regardless, so it's difficult to generalize across all the industries, but I think regardless of the sector, we're seeing many different touch points within all organizations, like Mason just said, he's observing internally himself. So where an investment has already been made in infrastructure, there are benefits to sales, benefits to operations, benefits to the e-commerce team, so to the sustainability team, because a huge number of the use cases actually result in minimized waste or proving progress towards sustainability goals or science-based targets like sell everything you manufacture or minimize truck rolls. And now, of course, we're starting to see RAIN being championed by compliance and legal teams. and because we can enable them to demonstrate accurate traceability, for example, country of origin. So we definitely see multiple champions within any individual organization, and that does take some level of coordination, and whoever is in the lead tends to vary, at least in the experience that I've been observing so far.
To add a quick perspective and actually confirming what you both said already, what we see also is that the ownership or the championing moves a little bit away from all the technical stakeholders. So it has been a very technical topic in the past. So specifically, IT was looking into that, but that also relates to the fact that IT departments, IT stakeholders, CIO, role changes these days. So digitization is seen as an enabler for the business. So the business itself, and you named quite a lot of examples, is more and more owning the topic, and tech or IT as a facilitator. So actually, it's also very cross-departmental. So which is also a testament that the technology itself, RAIN, and once on a product or an asset, has so many benefits. It starts with tagging, of course, then goes through supply chain, logistics, stock management, compliance, sustainability, you name it. So that's why I see also there's not that one owner, but it's not as much tech-driven anymore as it has been in the past. You're still muted, JP.
One thing, Aileen, that you said that really kind of blows me away: 53 billion tags, a billion tags a week, had a CAGR of 20%. Now that means in 5 years we'll be at 3x total number of tags that we use today, which is 150 billion tags ish. And those are just huge numbers. That really kind of just blows me away.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to distract from the topic, but that was something that really kind of just was like a wow moment. The paper positions visibility as an antidote to tariff uncertainty, but many companies still face, many companies still say that they have that siloed data and that fractured data. And so, from your experience, what's that biggest misconception of end-to-end visibility, and how can these companies break down those barriers to give them that true end-to-end visibility?
Yeah, great point. And I can maybe relate to what I said in the last round already about the role of tech. And actually, every company that operates in the current world and environment is somehow digital. So we are living in a digital world. We got more and more tools and systems, but that's actually the problem or the challenge. So it's often a quantity game. So many companies, enterprises introduce more and more and more systems, but let's say the harmonization or the standardization among all those systems is the challenge. So there is no lack of BI tools, or sometimes data sits just in an Excel spreadsheet. There are ERP systems outside, you name it. But while that comes to the misconception, or leads to the misconception that actually a lot of companies think they have all the data already available, they cannot utilize it because it's siloed. And here's also where RAIN, RFID as a technology, and the standards around come in, because you have, first of all, an identification standard with EPC and SG10 or whatever kind of standard you put into the chip, but it's a unique identifier, or you could actually call it the digital twin of a product. So this is making it really unique and standardized. And the second one is also the related data standards like EPCIS, so tracking items, assets along its journey and sharing this with business partners. And that's often also still a big problem without unique identification and without EPCIS, that you speak different languages. So actually here the power of such a technology comes in to really make sure every product has its passport or its twin, and the data is accessible in real time among partners, so they can actually generate and achieve the visibility that they need.
So I know where this question was more about kind of siloed data within companies. I might take it a little bit of a different direction just to hit on what I think is an important point, as I have been having conversations with lawmakers and elected officials in my role in government affairs, is that I think a lot of folks on this call, we understand how ubiquitous this technology is, how all of the benefits of it. I think we've done such a good job of making it very inconspicuous on packaging, on parcels that folks are receiving, that it's not as widely known outside of this world. And so I think for those folks on this call who work in the industry, educating for your lawmakers and other folks that are important on kind of your elected officials on the importance of this technology, how widespread it is, how critical it is to the economy is important as well. Because as I've had conversations with members of Congress, other folks in the government, they don't necessarily understand the technology, how important it is, and how detrimental it would be if kind of the broader framework of how RFID technology is regulated and how it operates would, how detrimental that would be to the industry. So kind of taking this a little bit of a different direction, I would encourage those on this call who haven't connected with their lawmakers to do so, just to make sure they understand how useful this can be and how critical it is to the economy.
A great point, Mason, especially with all the other things that are happening right now in the world of RFID. You know, I want to go and kind of move from the world of theory, you know, where what Tom was talking about. You know, an example is EPCIS. We don't see a lot of companies implementing EPCIS, either software companies or actual retailers. It's really not something that's ubiquitous across the spectrum of solutions. And so let's try to move from theory to concrete. You know, where have you seen RAIN RFID actually make a measurable difference, and you know, how have they done this?
Don't know who's going to jump in first here. So I will. To my mind, RAIN helps in practical terms in two ways in this context. So maximizing certainty and confidence, and minimizing risk. So as Tom mentioned, RAIN tags can be read from a distance. They can, in some use cases, be RAIN tags are read without opening a box or opening the container. Or in some cases, we see specific types of RAIN seals on containers, like big shipping containers, which enable green lane customs clearance. So if your product isn't stuck in customs, if it can get to you faster, then that's a win. And on the other hand, if you have the data, knowing where your product is, you can also do scenario analysis and scenario planning to de-risk and know when you're actually going to have it based on where it is and how it's going to get to its next point that you want to use it. So for me, perhaps not answering the, you know, in technical terms, how does RAIN help? But the benefits for me are around maximizing certainty and confidence and minimizing the risk associated with supply chain, with logistics, and with ultimately being sure that you are on the right side of any, you're compliant with any tariff legislation or other legislations.
And I can give an example of a very granular way that RFID is being used. Kroger recently put RFID tags on their goods in their bakery. And so this allows them to be able to more quickly tell when items are going to go bad, what's in stock, and ultimately reduce the amount of time that their employees are spending kind of dealing with baked goods and allow them more time to interact with customers. So just a very concrete example of where RAIN RFID is being used in a way that you may not expect it, because we've talked a lot about kind of these broader tariff implications, but it can also be used in much kind of more granular applications as well.
Granular or granular? No, So, one of the things I like about the article, and it was interesting, kind of a twist there, is the RFID RAIN promises, item level traceability for tariff classification. So how realistic is it in this global supplier, and network that we have, where origin documentation often breaks down, that, that the role of standards and EPC, IS and EPC and TDS in a closed gap can actually affect it?
A good concern, a good question, and I have two thoughts on that. So first of all, this topic, and specifically getting insights into the country of origin, is a very practical use case into how tracking tracing technology, specifically RAIN RFID, can add value to the existing world. And the first thought is that some people might think it's even too simple, because you might say, yeah, you have a purchase order already, and PO information or any kind of batch information already gives you this kind of insight. But the real world shows it's not the case. So products go through very complex supplier networks. You have different raw material composition components for the raw material composition. So and there actually we have those two benefits. On the one hand, you add an extra layer or more granular data, as Mason just said. So unique item, and if it's actually scanned by great RFID read points that can read over the air in a bulk, in a distance, and through a closed box, create a valid tracking moment. It's a record in a database in the system that has also legal impact, because without that record, we would not have those data, as simple as it is. So I'll go one level deeper with this kind of data that we generate than you would have right now with pure PO level data. That's the first thought. And the second thought is, if you have this information, country of origin, provenance of an item, it's very easy with those kind of data structures and RFID-based tracking points to enrich. For example, with raw material data, I just named it customs information, tariff codes. And actually then you can build other use cases around that. So if you once have raw material data for an individual item, you can also give this information to business partners or to the end consumer for recycling information. So knowing how to recycle an item is an added value. Maybe you can split it again and reuse it, or repair. The other example, if you once know how to repair an item, you also extend the life cycle or the life itself. You can enjoy the product longer and add more value also over time. So those are my thoughts around just country of origin. It's more than that.
Building on that, going from country of origin to where we're talking about components now, what about multi-stage manufacturing, where companies are assembling products in multiple jurisdictions? So how can RAIN handle value-added tracking in a way that's audit ready for some of these preferential trade agreements like USMCA or GSP?
Yeah, as Aileen's already talked about, RAIN RFID can create an unalterable audit trail. And so having that verifiable, trustworthy data on a product is becoming ever more important as we see kind of increased scrutiny on, especially in the US, on trade and tariffs. I think, JP, your example of the comic book, we've eliminated the de minimis exemption. So I'm not sure if that's exactly the case, but it used to be items coming in under $800 weren't subject to tariffs. Now they are. So we're seeing a lot more granular, to use our word of the day, data being required and being able to verify, and with a high level of certainty and trustworthiness, the data is going to be ever more important as this continues. And to build on something Tom said, kind of going back to country of origin, It could be that your product, you think it has one country of origin, you get a ruling out of Customs and Border Protection that says, actually, no, that's not the inherent characteristic of your product. It's this. This happened. There was a recent example where there was a CBP ruling that said it's actually not this part of your product, it's this part. So then that changes the country of origin. So it could be you were sourcing out of one country, kind of going back to our discussion about seeking out preferential tariff treatment or strategies. And so then all of a sudden it's not this country, it's this country. They have a different tariff rate coming out of the US for now. And so being able to kind of nimbly and quickly adapt to that is something RAIN RFID lends itself to very well, because you already have that data, you have that information at hand. All it requires is just going in and kind of seeing what that is and then planning accordingly. But you have that information at your fingertips with this technology.
So, all this talk about country of origin and kind of multi-stage manufacturing really are great dovetails into digital product passport, or DPP. The white paper talks a little bit about this and talks about how RAIN RFID can link to item level carbon tracking and DPP compliance. So, if we kind of take a step back from that, what technical or organizational changes must companies overcome to tie RFID data to carbon circularity claims or to DPP compliance?
So I'll jump in on this one. So Digital Product Passport is a European Union legislation which is still emerging. And this legislation will apply to products that are sold within Europe, regardless of their point of origin or point of manufacture. And so first of all, it's super important to remember that DPP is not only a European Union concern. So regardless of where products are manufactured, if they're going to be sold within Europe, then they need to be compliant with Digital Product Passport. And even more than that, we also see other countries are watching DPP and are getting themselves ready to implement their own version of it. And sort of there are a lot of eyes on this legislation as it emerges now. But the legislation specifically calls for sustainability data to be made available to the consumer at and beyond the point of sale. So Digital Product Passport in its current form is really focused on sustainability and enabling decision making around characteristics associated with sustainability. So as you said, carbon footprint, circularity, recycling, etc. So we are definitely seeing the industry tooling up for this, but it's early days yet. But nonetheless, there are some very clear emerging technical trends as a result of this legislation. So given that the focus of this legislation is to give the consumer access to data at the point of sale and beyond the point of sale, first of all, there's an increasing trend towards embedded tags. So not tags that are detached from the item at the point of sale. So tags instead that are embedded, that remain with the item for its full life. And you can imagine that an embedded tag has some pretty unique and challenging requirements in terms of the type of environment that it might need to withstand temperature variation, humidity, being immersed in water if it's on an item that's being laundered, etc. So there are a lot of really challenging technical requirements on embedded tags depending on what item they're being designed for and what the form factor is. Readability of the tag information by consumers is also driving a lot of innovation. So today, consumers don't typically have access to RAIN readers. Those tend to be more in the enterprise domain today. But we do see a very, relatively near in the next small number of years, RAIN readers in smartphones. And in fact, this is an initiative that the RAIN Alliance is driving already. So that's an enormous innovation. And, we're at the early stages of understanding what does that really mean. and what are the, what are the benefits and what are the things that we need to take care of in order for that to be a trusted technology from a consumer point of view. And then we've talked a bit already about the need to have the right data accessible to the consumer. So the data associated with, for example, ownership, the data associated with those sustainability information needs to be accessible to the consumer. And that's an issue for retailers, it's an issue for manufacturers, regardless of what data carrier is being used. So be it a RAIN tag or be it a QR code or something else, there has to be a way or a routing, if you like, from the identifier on the data carrier to where that data is stored and making sure that that data is accurate on a per item basis. So this legislation actually is driving huge innovation within our sector and within the software sector that ultimately aggregates all of this kind of data and information that's available about products. So this is, in practical terms, I think the legislation is moving along very nicely, but now the industry, we as an industry community need to collaborate together to make sure that in practical terms, all of these systems can work to achieve the goals of the legislation.
I just want to add one a thought from a general perspective, because I know that if you listen to us here as the panelist, you notice that we are obviously biased by our profession, and we are all fans of not only the technology but also the idea of a digital product passport, which of course relates and comes together with RAIN RFID. But I feel a lot of resistance or hesitance from many companies who see that as an act of bureaucracy. And I just want to say it out loud. It's not. Yes, it's a piece of paper and a regulation, and you read it and you say, oh, now I need to do it. But I would like to change the perspective in that context. So who does not want to know finally where the items are coming from, where they are now, what are anomalies, where something is getting lost, for example, to be able to better control your supply chain, your merchandise structure, allocation, replenishment, recycling, returnable assets, etc., etc. So besides or getting away from the misperception of being a bureaucratic act in just European Union, digital product passport, digital twin, unique identification, however you name it, is actually the foundation. The foundation to know your business. And I think this is really also the link to sharing this data with the consumers, the shoppers, as Aileen just said. So it's more than bureaucracy. That's just what I want to say if we finalize the section about DPP.
The last thing I'd add on DPP is I know my colleagues in the European Union at Avery Dennison were heavily involved in having discussions with lawmakers as this regulation was being discussed and promulgated to talk about what RFID could do that would benefit this process and this initiative. So again, just another plug for staying involved and having conversations with lawmakers, because a lot of these regulations end up affecting us, the RAIN broader ecosystem, RAIN RFID ecosystem. So important to stay engaged and involved, because I think RAIN RFID has a huge opportunity with DPP, and making sure that lawmakers knew about that while it was being discussed was very important.
It's all great feedback. Thank you. And one thing, something that you said actually really, again, sparked my interest, which is, as if we think about incorporation of UHF RAIN into consumer handsets and the potential change that can have, I just think back to the incorporation of NFC into consumer handsets and the tremendous innovation and use cases that really kind of brought to the marketplace. And so that sounds like maybe a topic for an upcoming fireside chat of what's going to happen there. Coming back to the paper, the paper reframes compliance not just as a risk mitigation, but as a trigger for digital transformation. So can you share examples where RAIN RFID actually helped the company shift from being reactive to proactive when it comes to managing global trade?
Well, first of all, to jump in on the trigger for digital transformation bit of your question, JP, there's, as we've said, growing alignment between RAIN technology, the Internet of Things, and regulatory frameworks of all kinds, whether that's tariffs, whether it's digital product passport, whether it's United Nations transparency regulations, or even European Union electronic waste legislation, which is in some ways not entirely aligned with digital product passport. So some potential conflicts that have yet to be navigated. But to think about how do we stay ahead and how do we make sure that this digital transformation journey that we're enabling, how do we make sure that it meets the goals of our society, of our community? For me, it's really about being educated, being informed. Mason talked a couple of times about being active and lobbying and making sure that legislation is fit for purpose. I think we all actually have, it's necessary for us all to be tracking what's happening, to be collaborating, and to use our influence to ensure that the legislation, but also the technical standards are fit for purpose and are implementable in real life. And the level of ingenuity that I see when we talk about some of the technical challenges that still remain is genuinely really impressive. When you ask about an example of RAIN technology helping a shift from being reactive to being proactive in managing global trade, the one thing that really keeps on jumping out to me, I was recently visiting some of our members in India, and they were showing me a fantastic, relatively simple innovation where they were having challenges where sealed metal shipping containers, the contents of them at the point of arrival, let's say, were not necessarily always what they were or what they believed they had been when they departed from their point of origin. And so in that case, they're using a simple but custom designed RAIN antenna, which is used to seal the crate at the time when it arrives at the dock and is being loaded onto the ship. And then that effectively unlocks a whole swathe of use cases because of the digital transformation and the simpleness of that digital transformation. So it guarantees that the contents haven't been tampered with in transit. It drives very real, practical digital transformation in an industry that previously was a laggard in technology adoption. So instead of having, reams of paper and you're checking off all of the items that should have been in there, you have a very simple digital record of what was there and a guarantee that that's what's still going to be in that container at the point of arrival. So for me, and I think it was Tom said, this technology is pretty simple, and actually it is pretty simple, but the value and the ingenuity, human sort of ingenuity that's involved in designing solutions using this quite simple technology can be really transformative.
To that point, then, what's next? How do we stay ahead, and how can we take all the incredible information that we've learned today and apply it practically to our businesses?
My recommendation is keep it simple and make it not too technical. So I think you all noticed here that we are tech enthusiasts, but what we also need to convey as a message to the market is you do not need to test technology. So it's there, it's tested, it's proven, it's standardized. It's there to create business value. And of course, I see that practically there might be challenges with specifically change management to get it incorporate into your operations, into daily lives, into the business models of the companies. But they're very easy. Keep it simple, go step by step, little by little, and then scale fast, as they say. So that's my main recommendation here.
I think from a government perspective, we're already seeing different governments around the world kind of look at DPP and kind of see not only how could we kind of copy this, but also what other applications are there. I know there's discussions in China around DPP and what that might look like in that country. So staying involved in kind of keeping up on what's happening with governments where it impacts you. But as Aileen said, with regard to DPP, that's going to affect anyone selling into the EU. So a lot of these initiatives will impact anyone who's doing kind of business on a global level. So just keeping abreast of that as we see governments view this as a more mature technology as adoption grows. We talked about the numbers of tags in circulation and how that's projected to expand over the next few years. So really staying abreast of what's going on as governments see this as a more mature technology, as Tom mentioned, and start to look at what other applications there are for adopting it.
So Aileen mentioned the example of the container seal tags that basically wouldn't work anymore if you broke that seal. Are there any other examples that you guys can share of how this is being used or best practices in which this can be used?
Think of one practical use case that would actually not be able without RAIN RFID technology. So some of our brands, and one specifically very premium, very adorable, and likely to be copied, faked, counterfeited, or put into gray markets, uses the technology to actually also get control into, of course, where products are going, but to identify parallel imports. So they use the chip information or the unique identity to refer an item that is actually identified popping up in an unauthorized market to where it's coming from. Why that? To get control back, to avoid that happening again, saving them not only a lot of money that they would lose through such anomalies happening, but building trust towards the consumers that they buy an authentic product, but also to business and trade partners that can rely on proper trade agreements, that can rely that the product is authentic, that can rely that they get the most value out of their business. So that's a perfect example. Small use case, big impact, and it wouldn't be possible without RAIN RFID technology.
No, that was great. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I mean, I could probably go on with another 40 questions, but our time is really ending here. So I want to take this and look at some of the questions that have been asked by the audience and give them a chance to ask and our panelists a few things. So I'm opening up the Q&A here. We've got actually a few questions. So let me ask the first one, and we'll see how much time we have left. What's the easiest way for a brand or a company to get started with RAIN RFID?
So for me, again, bearing in mind that my role as the CEO of the RAIN Alliance, I think it's incumbent upon me to talk about what the RAIN Alliance provides to our members and also to non-members, because we believe we have a role in educating the industry. We have a role in making sure that deployments are successful. And so all kinds of educational content that we have available, including training courses, including an ebook, which is a very simple, like dummies guide kind of book to get you started and get you thinking about what are the things that I need to really consider as I start to plan my RAIN deployment or my RAIN program. We have lots of webinars like this one, which you can watch live, obviously, like the people who are here today, but also we get quite a significant viewership afterwards. So all of the recordings are available on our website and on YouTube for people to watch afterwards. And we are hosting a fantastic RAIN in Action event towards the end of September in Amsterdam, which has two deep dive one-day workshops, which are built into the pricing structure. One is on the use of RAIN in healthcare, and one is on RAIN and digital product passport and sustainability. So from my point of view, the best way to get started, if you're just thinking about, what's the scope that I need to start to think through? What's the how much planning do I need to do? Who might be the partners that I might engage with, etc. I would definitely encourage you to look to the RAIN Alliance website and all of the assets and resources that are available there.
To add one thought, which is a bit of a repetition, keep it simple, keep it small, and make it not too technical, or translate it to just play. So it's everyone in that alliance, every partner provides solution components, and helps you with getting RAIN into action. So start small, play around, and look into 3 aspects actually, because like I said, it shall not be a technical validation, but a business impact validation. So where can you, let's say, scan faster over the air in a bulk through closed boxes? I mentioned that before. Where do you need an additional level of accuracy? And finally, where can item level information and real-time data with DPP or digital twin generate insights that you would not have without RAIN RFID data. So those are the 3 components from how you build a business case. Efficiency, accuracy, visibility in a nutshell. And then you're there. Just play and start and get it done. You're muted.
Thank you. We don't have much time left. We have 4 questions, though, on this one topic. So I thought I would try to combine them all into one quick question before we try to close things out. And that's, how does RFID and barcodes come together, especially with Sunrise 2027, even with DPP? How do you bring together 2D linear barcode and RFID? Is there any advice you can give the people on the call?
So from my point of view, I'll again talk about the RAIN Alliance training program. So we very specifically have designed a training program on encoding best practices. And we've rolled that out over the last 12 months in multiple different places. And we're now moving the majority of that course online, in fact. And it's very specifically designed with this challenge in mind, because any errors in encoding, whether that's when you're using a single data carrier or exacerbated when you have multiple data carriers associated with an individual item, any encoding errors are going to cause issues. They're going to impact the overall efficiency, effectiveness, and return on investment associated with your RAIN deployment. So there's no, there are processes, of course, that need to be put in place. And sometimes when we see encoding issues, they are in fact process deviations or the results of poor processes or poorly implemented processes, even if they're well defined. So for me, it's about education. It's about paying attention to detail, and regardless of, as I said, whether there's one or multiple data carriers, this is an issue that the industry simply has to get right.
I want to take one.
Oh,
sorry. Finally, a quick one. I want to take one concern away, because sometimes we hear companies, users thinking that those are competitive technologies, barcode, QR code, 2D, whatsoever, and RAIN RFID, but it's not, it's complementary. At the end of the day, it's just a carrier of an identity, with unique strengths, bulk reading, etc. for RAIN RFID, robustness, and optical scanning with consumer devices for 2D, for example. So clearly both belong together, and it's based on the use case where each in a complementary way has either a strength, or another strength in another use case. So, but it's absolutely complementary.
Perfect. one last thing, we're really running short on time, but I wanted to give each panelist an opportunity. If there was one key takeaway that every listener of this fireside chat can walk away with, what would it be?
For me, it's definitely get involved, be educated, be active within the community, because there are lots of changes happening. There are lots of innovation happening. There's lots of, the title of this is around turbulence, and there's turbulence in tariffs, but there's also, if you want to use the word turbulence in terms of the amount of change that we're seeing right now, which is all for the good. But people will be left behind if they're not involved. So for me, it's get involved.
I think
Me, it's
I'd echo
sorry, Mason
Aileen's.
first.
Sure. I would just echo what Aileen said. Touch base, especially with the policymakers that are going to be having those discussions that impact you, and also take advantage of the RAIN technology that really does provide kind of the data and the speed that are needed in turbulent times, particularly around tariffs. But as has been, I think, highlighted, lots of other applications for the technology as well.
So I try to keep it very short. So for me, the takeaway is that it's not about the technology, but it's about what the technology can do for you and your business. So make it practical, try it out, keep it simple, just do it. That's it.
Well, thank you so much to Aileen, Mason, and Tom. You guys have been absolutely awesome, and thank you for that incredible white paper. If everyone hasn't had a chance to read it, you really should. And really today we've learned about, visibility is more than knowing where your goods are. It's about understanding what your risks are. And, that's the key thing. RAIN RFID doesn't just tell us what's happening, it gives us the power to act. So thank you so much. Buckle up your seatbelts for the turbulence that's ahead, and hopefully RAIN RFID helps us get through it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, JP. Thanks, everyone.
JP.
Well, thank you all. Bye bye.